True courage is not the absence of fear, but facing the storm when your heart trembles. Love conquers hatred, bridges divide cultures, and heals the deepest wounds. The dusty stagecoach lurched to a halt before the weathered buildings of Fort Worth, Texas. Emily Thornton stepped down carefully, her dark traveling dress modest yet elegant, her gloved hands trembling slightly as she clutched a worn leather satchel. The September sun blazed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the main street. She had traveled from Boston under an assumed name, carrying forged papers identifying her as a mail-order bride for Farmer William Blake. Behind her, careful composure lay a desperate secret. She had killed her brutal husband Cedric in self-defense, and now bounty hunters pursued her across the frontier. William Blake emerged from the saloon, reeking of whiskey and tobacco. His weathered face bore the cruel lines of a man accustomed to taking what he wanted. "You're prettier than expected," he slurred, circling Emily like a predator. "I paid good money for a wife, not some fancy Eastern lady." Emily stepped back, her stomach churning. "Mr. Blake, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. I came seeking honest work, not marriage." His eyes narrowed dangerously. "You'll do as you're told, woman. I own you now." The watching townspeople averted their eyes, knowing Blake's reputation for violence and his powerful connections. Sheriff Jack Stone observed the confrontation from his office doorway, his weathered hand resting on his badge. Something about the mysterious woman stirred his protective instincts. Her refined speech and careful mannerisms seemed at odds with her desperate circumstances. "Blake, leave the lady be," he called out, his voice carrying the authority of his position. "She's made her feelings clear." Blake's face flushed with anger. "This ain't your business, Sheriff. She's my property." Emily seized the moment. "I refuse this arrangement. I'll find other employment." The sheriff nodded approvingly. "Mrs. Thornton, the schoolhouse needs a teacher. Interested?" As Emily settled into the small room above the general store, she noticed strange men asking questions about newcomers. Their leader, a cold-eyed man named Silas Crane, showed her daguerreotype to locals. $500 for information about this woman, he announced. "She's wanted for murder back east." Emily's blood ran cold as she watched from her window. The past had found her faster than expected. That evening, she visited the one-room schoolhouse, where children's desks sat in neat rows. "This could be my salvation," she whispered, running her fingers along the rough wooden surface. Teaching had always been her dream, before marriage trapped her in a nightmare of abuse. 2 weeks into her teaching position, Emily walked the familiar path home from the schoolhouse as twilight painted the sky purple. The children had warmed to her gentle ways, and she found solace in their eager faces. Near the cottonwoods by the river, she heard a low groan of pain. Hidden among the reeds lay a wounded Apache warrior, his dark hair matted with blood, his buckskin clothing torn and stained. Army bullets had found their mark during his escape from a patrol. Emily's heart raced with fear and compassion. Despite the townspeople's warnings about savage Indians, she saw only a suffering human being who would die without help. "Please, don't be afraid," the warrior whispered in broken English, his dark eyes meeting hers. "I am Eagle's Gaze, son of Chief Running Bear." Emily knelt beside him, her medical knowledge from caring for her sick mother taking over. "You're badly wounded. I can help, but we must move you somewhere safe." The abandoned trapper's cabin a mile upstream offered shelter. As Emily cleaned his wounds with torn petticoats and river water, Eagle's Gaze studied her with suspicion. "Why does white woman help Apache?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Because you're hurt," Emily replied simply. "That's reason enough." For 3 days, Emily visited the hidden cabin, bringing food and medicine stolen from the general store. Eagle's Gaze remained wary, expecting betrayal at any moment. "Your people hate mine," he said as she changed his bandages. "They call us devils, monsters." Emily met his gaze steadily. "I've learned that real monsters often wear respectable faces. You're no devil." Slowly, trust began to build between them. He told her of life on the reservation, of broken promises and stolen lands. She shared her own story of captivity in marriage, of violence behind closed doors. Both had fled from different kinds of prisons. Sheriff Stone noticed Emily's strange behavior, her distracted teaching, mysterious absences, and nervous glances toward the river. "Everything all right, Mrs. Thornton?" he asked after church services. "You seem troubled." Emily forced a smile. "Just adjusting to frontier life, Sheriff. It's quite different from Boston." Meanwhile, the townspeople whispered about missing food supplies and strange tracks near the river. "Indians been prowling about," muttered the store owner. "Army patrol came through yesterday looking for an escaped Apache. Dangerous one, they said." Emily's stomach tightened. She was harboring a fugitive, and discovery meant death for Eagle's Gaze, and possibly herself. As Eagle's Gaze recovered his strength, he revealed the true purpose of his desperate journey. "I did not flee the reservation from cowardice," he said, his voice heavy with pain. "My sister, Starsong, vanished 3 moons ago. She was taken by slavers who steal our women from Mexican buyers." Emily's heart ached at his anguish. "The authorities won't help because she's Apache. I must find her before—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Emily grasped his hand. "Then we'll find her together. I have connections in town. People trust the school teacher." His eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "You would risk this for my sister?" Emily began her careful investigation, listening to conversations in the general store and asking innocent questions. From the baker's wife, she learned of strange wagons passing through at night. The blacksmith mentioned men paying premium prices for heavy chains and locks. "Peculiar requests," he mused. "Said they were for livestock, but those chains would hold a buffalo." Emily's blood chilled. At the schoolhouse, young Tommy Blake mentioned his father's new Mexican business partners, who visited after dark. The pieces were forming a horrifying picture. That evening, she shared her findings with Eagle's Gaze. "The trail leads to Blake's farm," she whispered. Eagle's Gaze's jaw tightened with controlled fury. "Blake, the man who claimed you as property. Evil runs deep in his blood." Together, they scouted the farm under moonlight, moving like shadows through the mesquite and sage. Behind the main house, they discovered a hidden corral with reinforced bars and evidence of recent occupancy. Scraps of torn clothing, Apache beadwork, and markings scratched into the wood. "Starsong was here," Eagle's Gaze breathed, touching a symbol only he could recognize. "But they moved her." Emily noticed fresh wagon tracks leading south toward the Mexican border. "We're getting closer," she assured him, though dread filled her heart. Sheriff Stone's suspicions grew stronger as he observed Emily's increasingly secretive behavior. Following her one evening, he watched from a distance as she met with a shadowy figure by the river. "What's the schoolteacher up to?" he muttered to himself. His lawman's instincts told him something significant was happening under his nose. The next morning, he confronted her directly. "Emily, I know you're hiding something. Those bounty hunters are still sniffing around town, and now there's talk of missing supplies and strange activities." Emily's composure cracked slightly. "Sheriff, some situations require unconventional solutions." Stone leaned forward. "What kind of trouble are you in, woman?" Silas Crane and his bounty hunters arrived in Fort Worth like vultures circling carrion. Their leader's cold eyes missed nothing as they questioned every merchant, every saloon keeper, every woman who might have seen their quarry. "Emily Thornton murdered her husband in cold blood," Crane announced to the gathered crowd. $500 to whoever brings her in." Emily watched from the schoolhouse window, her hands shaking as she recognized the ruthless man who had tracked her across half the continent. That evening, she knew she could no longer keep her secrets from Eagle's Gaze. Their partnership demanded complete honesty, no matter the cost. In the flickering candlelight of the hidden cabin, Emily's voice broke as she revealed her terrible secret. "I killed my husband, Cedric Thornton, with his own rifle." Eagle's Gaze listened without judgment as she described years of brutal beatings, forced isolation, and psychological torment. "He was drunk that night, more violent than usual. When he came at me with the fire poker, I defended myself." Tears streamed down her face. "The law won't see it as self-defense. A woman has no right to resist her husband's discipline." Eagle's Gaze reached out, gently touching her trembling hand. "You did what any warrior would do." Eagle's Gaze shared his own devastating loss, his voice heavy with grief. "I too know the pain of losing everything. My wife, Singing Wind, died of the white man's spotted fever at the reservation. My son, Little Fox, followed her to the spirit world 2 days later. Emily saw the deep sorrow in his dark eyes. I failed to protect them from the sickness, just as I failed to protect Star Song from the slavers. They sat in comfortable silence, two wounded souls finding solace in shared understanding. We are both marked by tragedy, Emily whispered. Perhaps that's why we found each other. Crane's men began systematic searches of every building in Fort Worth, their aggression growing with each empty hideout. She's here somewhere, Crane snarled, his scarred face twisted with determination. That Eastern money makes this worth the hunt. Meanwhile, Emily taught her students with forced normalcy, knowing each day might be her last in the classroom she'd grown to love. Young Sarah raised her hand. Miss Thornton, why do you look so sad lately? Emily managed a weak smile. Sometimes grown-ups have worries, sweetheart, but seeing your bright faces makes everything better. Outside, Crane's shadow fell across the schoolhouse window. Sheriff Stone's patient tracking led him to the abandoned cabin where Emily tended to Eagle's gaze. His hand rested on his weapon as he pushed open the creaking door, expecting to find evidence of Emily's mysterious activities. Instead, he found something far more complex. A white woman caring for a wounded Apache warrior with obvious tenderness. Don't move, Stone commanded, though his voice lacked its usual authority. Emily stood protectively in front of Eagle's gaze. Sheriff, this isn't what it appears. Eagle's gaze struggled to sit up, his hand moving toward his knife. Wait, Stone said slowly, his experienced eyes taking in the medical supplies and careful bandaging. You're not his captive. Emily's voice trembled as she explained their unlikely partnership. His name is Eagle's Gaze. He's searching for his sister who was taken by slavers. I've been helping him because it's the right thing to do. Stone studied the Apache warrior, noting the intelligence in his eyes and the obvious pain from his wounds. And you're the woman those bounty hunters are after, he said to Emily. Self-defense against a brutal husband, I'd wager. Emily's surprise showed plainly. How did you know? Stone removed his hat, running weathered fingers through his graying hair. I've been sheriffing for 20 years. I know the difference between a killer and a victim. Eagle's Gaze spoke carefully, his English improving with each conversation. Sheriff Stone, my sister Star Song was taken from our reservation. The men who stole her sell Apache women across the border. Your law does nothing to help my people. Stone's jaw tightened. If that's true, it's a crime in my jurisdiction. Emily added urgently. We've traced the operation to William Blake's farm. He's working with Mexican buyers. Stone's expression darkened. Blake's been trouble for years, but I never had proof. If he's involved in human trafficking, he looked between them. You're asking me to risk my badge, my reputation, everything. That night, Blake's suspicions about the investigation intensified. He doubled the guards around his property and sent urgent messages to his Mexican contacts. Someone's been sniffing around my business, he growled to his foreman. Post men at every approach. Kill anyone who gets too close. Meanwhile, in the hidden cabin, an unlikely alliance formed. If we work together, Stone said carefully, we might save those women and stop Blake's operation. But it means breaking several laws. Emily met his gaze steadily. Some laws are worth breaking for justice. Eagle's Gaze nodded solemnly. My people have learned that white man's law does not always serve truth. Stone holstered his weapon. Then we'd better plan this carefully. Through careful reconnaissance, the trio discovered Blake's horrifying secret. The old mining settlement in Devil's Canyon held underground chambers where kidnapped women were imprisoned. Eagle's Gaze's tracking skills revealed multiple wagon routes leading to the Mexican border. This operation is bigger than we thought, Stone muttered, studying their crude map. Emily gathered intelligence from her students, learning about strange sounds at night and men speaking Spanish near the canyon. Emily used her position as schoolteacher to gain crucial information. Young Maria whispered about her father's fear of the canyon. Papa says evil spirits live there now, the girl confided, but I heard crying voices, not spirits. Emily's heart raced. Meanwhile, Eagle's Gaze made contact with Apache scouts, who reported seeing armed guards and hearing women's voices from the mining tunnels. The evidence pointed to a trafficking network spanning hundreds of miles across the frontier. As they pieced together the conspiracy, Silas Crane's men closed in on Emily's location. "She's been seen near the river," one bounty hunter reported. "Local kids saw her talking to someone in the woods." Crane's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Double the watch, she's close." Emily felt the noose tightening around her neck. Every public appearance risked exposure, yet she couldn't abandon the mission to save Starsong and the other captive women from their underground prison. Deep in the mining tunnels, Starsong maintained hope despite her desperate circumstances. She had become a leader among the prisoners, organizing resistance and keeping spirits alive. "My brother will come," she whispered to the other women in Apache. Eagle's gaze never abandons family. Using small stones, she tapped coded messages on the tunnel walls, hoping somehow her signals would reach potential rescuers. Above ground, their captors remained unaware of the growing rebellion brewing in the darkness below. The unlikely team developed a daring plan for a nighttime raid on the mining settlement. Stone provided rifles and ammunition from his office armory, risking his career. "If this goes wrong, we're all dead or in prison," he warned grimly. Emily revealed unexpected skills with firearms, taught by her grandfather during childhood hunting trips. "I haven't held a rifle in years," she admitted, "but some things you never forget." Eagle's gaze nodded approvingly as she demonstrated her marksmanship. Eagle's gaze taught Emily Apache stealth techniques, how to move silently through brush, read animal signs, and navigate by stars. "Your people make too much noise," he said patiently. "Walk like the wind, not like thunder." Emily proved a quick student, her desperation fueling her determination. Stone studied the canyon's layout, memorizing guard positions and escape routes. "We'll have one chance," he said. "Miss it, and those women die with us." From the underground chambers, Starsong's coded tapping reached other prisoners throughout the tunnel network. She had organized a communication system using rocks and whispered words. "When rescue comes, we must be ready," she told the frightened women. "Some of us know these tunnels better than our captors." Her quiet strength inspired hope in the darkest places. Above, Blake's men remained oblivious to the growing resistance forming beneath their feet. As final preparations concluded, Silas Crane's net tightened around Fort Worth. His men questioned every citizen, offering rewards for information. "The school teacher is harboring secrets," Crane announced. "Find her hideout, and we'll have our fugitive." Emily knew time was running out. That evening, she stood before her students one final time. "Remember to be kind to each other," she said softly, fighting back tears. Sometimes kindness is the greatest courage of all. Under cover of darkness, Emily, Eagle's Gaze, and Sheriff Stone approached the mining settlement. The canyon walls towered around them like ancient sentinels as they crept past sleeping guards. Emily's heart pounded as they descended into the underground tunnels, following the sound of muffled voices. The air grew thick and stale, filled with the scent of fear and desperation. "Stay close," Eagle's Gaze whispered, his knife gleaming in the moonlight. Stone checked his rifle one final time. "Remember, we're here to save lives, not take them unless absolutely necessary." The entrance to the prison chambers lay just ahead. In the underground darkness, Starsong heard the approaching footsteps and alerted the other prisoners. "Be ready," she whispered in Apache. "Freedom comes tonight." When Eagle's Gaze appeared at the cell entrance, tears of joy streamed down her face. "My brother," she breathed. "I knew you would come." Starsong proved to be not just a survivor, but a leader who had kept the other women's spirits alive through months of captivity. "She organized us," whispered a Mexican woman. "Without her strength, we would have lost hope long ago." Eagle's Gaze felt immense pride as he began breaking the locks. Blake discovered the rescue in progress and confronted Eagle's Gaze in brutal hand-to-hand combat. "You'll die for this, savage," Blake snarled, swinging a heavy mining pick. Eagle's Gaze dodged skillfully, but the confined space limited his movements. Blake's superior size and weight began to tell as he drove the Apache warrior back against the tunnel wall. A vicious blow caught Eagle's Gaze across the ribs, sending him sprawling. As Blake raised the pick for a killing strike, Emily's rifle cracked from the tunnel entrance. Blake staggered backward, clutching his wounded shoulder, his weapon clattering to the ground. With Blake wounded and his guards scattered, the freed women followed Starsong through secret Apache trails she had memorized during her captivity. These paths will take us to safety, she assured them, leading the group into the pre-dawn darkness. Meanwhile, Silas Crane and his bounty hunters surrounded the canyon, having followed the sounds of gunfire. She's trapped now, Crane growled, his men positioning themselves at every exit. Emily helped the wounded eagle's gaze to his feet, knowing their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The hard part isn't over, Stone warned grimly. Crane's men are waiting for us above. As dawn broke over the canyon, Silas Crane called out his challenge. Emily Thornton, you're surrounded. Come out peaceful, and I might let your friends live. Emily stepped into the morning light, her rifle held steady. I'm here, Crane. But first, you'll face me in honorable combat. The bounty hunter laughed coldly. Honor? You murdered your husband in cold blood. Emily's voice rang clear across the canyon. I defended myself against a monster. Something you'd never understand. Eagle's gaze, despite his wounds, stepped beside her. She has Apache protection now. Face me if you dare. The tension crackled like lightning between storm clouds. I'll face the savage, Crane sneered, drawing his blade. Then collect my bounty. The duel began by the river where Emily had first found Eagle's gaze. Steel rang against steel as the two warriors circled each other. Crane fought with brutal efficiency, but Eagle's gaze possessed the fluid grace of his people. Despite his injuries, the Apache warrior's skill began to tell. A swift cut opened Crane's cheek, then another wounded his sword arm. You're finished, old man, Eagle's gaze said quietly. Crane's desperate lunge left him open to a fatal counterstrike. He fell beside the rushing water, his threat ended forever. With their leader dead, Crane's men surrendered to Sheriff Stone's authority. You're all under arrest for conspiracy and assault, Stone announced, his badge gleaming in the morning sun. Emily approached the sheriff with quiet dignity. I'm ready to face justice, Jack. I trust you to tell the truth about what happened here. Stone's weathered face showed deep emotion. Emily, you're the bravest woman I've ever known. I'll testify that you acted in self-defense, both then and now. He paused, his feelings evident. If circumstances were different, Emily touched his arm gently. You're a good man, Jack, but my heart belongs to another. Chief Running Bear arrived with Apache warriors, having followed the sound of battle. The distinguished leader embraced his son and daughter, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. My children have returned to me, he said in Apache. The spirits have smiled upon our family. He turned to Emily with deep respect. White woman, you risked everything to save my daughter. Our people will never forget this courage. Eagle's gaze translated his father's words. You are welcome among the Apache as family, he told Emily. My father wishes to give you an Apache name. Emily bowed respectfully. I would be honored, Chief Running Bear. Your son has taught me what true courage means. Chief Running Bear performed the naming ceremony at sunset, with the entire tribe gathered in a sacred circle. I give you the name, Woman Who Bridges Two Worlds, he announced solemnly, placing eagle feathers in Emily's hair. You bring peace between our peoples through courage and compassion. Emily felt tears of joy as she accepted her Apache name. She began learning their language and customs while teaching English to the children. Education builds understanding, she told Starsong, who had become her closest friend. Knowledge defeats fear and hatred. The tribe welcomed her warmth and wisdom, seeing her as a bridge between cultures. As autumn painted the desert in gold and crimson, Eagle's gaze formally asked Emily to become his wife, according to Apache tradition. Will you walk the path of life beside me? He asked, offering her a handmade necklace of turquoise and silver. Through seasons of joy and sorrow, in harmony with nature and the spirits of our ancestors, Emily's heart overflowed with love. Yes, my dear Eagle's gaze, I choose this life, this love, this future together. The betrothal ceremony took place under the open sky, with drums echoing across the desert and the first stars appearing overhead like diamonds scattered across dark velvet. Their wedding occurred during the harvest moon, when the night sky blazed with celestial fire. Apache warriors formed an honor guard while women sang ancient blessing songs. Emily wore traditional Apache wedding attire, a white doe-skin dress decorated with intricate beadwork that Starsong had created specially for the occasion. Eagle's gaze appeared in ceremonial paint and eagle feathers, his pride evident as he took Emily's hand. "Under these eternal stars, we pledge our hearts," he said, in both Apache and English. "May our love shine as brightly as the lights above us." The ceremony blessed their union with the power of earth and sky. 2 years later, Emily gave birth to a son during the spring rains. Chief Running Bear held his grandson high toward the sky, proclaiming his name, Two Worlds, for he carries the best of both peoples in his heart. The child had his father's dark eyes and his mother's gentle spirit. Sheriff Stone visited occasionally, bringing news from Fort Worth and gifts for the growing family. "You found your true home," he told Emily, bouncing the baby on his knee. Emily looked around at her Apache family, at Eagle's gaze teaching young warriors, at the children learning both languages. "Yes," she said softly. "Love truly conquered all our differences,